Hello and welcome to episode 265 of the Casual Try Hard podcast. I'm Brian,
And I'm James.
and this week we're gonna respond to another podcast or talk about what they talked about.
Yeah.
This is my fault, and
It's not your fault. It's Wizard's fault.
yeah, and then talk about the slow turn away from Magic IP to the IP of the rest of the nerd universe.
Yeah, the we'll call it decline
The decline
of unique IP.
Yes. So if you want to reach out with show ideas or things like that, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Discord, the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Facebook. I think I said email. Email's in there too. All those links and stuff are in the description. So if you have something to say, let us know.
Hit us up. Give us ideas for shows. Otherwise, we're just going to keep ranting.
Yeah, really.
If you're looking to support the show, a couple quick ways you can do that. First is no cost to you guys. This to use our TCG player affiliate link, CasualTryHard.com/TCG. Surf on over there, do your Magic shopping, and support us at the same time. Doesn't cost you guys anything extra. You're buying Magic product. Kind of a no-brainer. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you want to support us more directly, or you got something against TCG player for some reason, Patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG is where you can do that. You can chip a couple bucks in, and you'll get access to our pre-show. You get access to our show notes, and when I finally have stuff to send out to you guys, you'll be put on my mailing list as well.
Yeah.
Lets you kind of give back to the creators that you enjoy the content from, and really helps us out. Patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Real quick before we get into our first topic, I feel like I have to say, we on the show have been pretty critical of Wizards, not happy with a lot of decisions. It seems like we do an awful lot of these rants. This is not like an attempt by us to undermine Wizards or anything, or generate clicks or whatever. Like we do this show because we like talking to each other about Magic, and we enjoy that people like to tune in and listen. It's not like, we're looking for clickbaity titles or here's the next rant or whatever.
I mean, if you want to click, feel free.
Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. If you want to click, that's fine. But, I mean, we're going on 5.5 years or whatever, and the show hasn't exploded. So I don't think that that's the goal with any of these rant-style shows, is to just, generate interest, generate social media clicks or whatever. It's kind of just giving our thoughts. So I always feel bad when we do these rants because, we're always so negative.
Yeah,
but
I think that it's also important to point out that as that we've been doing the show for almost 5.5 years, that both Magic and we have changed.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Over that time. So part of where we're coming from is
nostalgia.
Both of us have changed. Yeah, there's some nostalgia and just changing priorities and opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna have another thing.
Okay, go for it.
Less serious than yours. So there is a school in North Carolina named Elon.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and so the lacrosse team is going to play Elon. And as you guys gotta come up with so they were first gonna play Davidson. I was like, oh, you gotta come up with good trash talk for rich people. Like, oh, your mother only has 4 cars after you score a goal or something. I'm like, your ascot is wrinkled. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, is it against Elon if you score a goal? She'd be like, you need to sell Twitter. I got your SpaceX right here. Just every time, just the most.
Here's
absurd,
a rocket for you.
Yeah.
Launch that one into space.
Yeah. Grimes left you. Just the most random Elon Musk related trash talk.
Yeah.
So we said the artist formerly known as Twitter, and I was like, oh man, the Elon jokes, they just write themselves. Okay. So last Thursday or Friday,
Yeah.
I messaged James and was like, "You have to listen to the first the rant that Marshall had on LR."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's starting to sound like us a little bit,
A little bit.
a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, some background. Um, a thing that Marshall and LSV to a lesser extent have been talking about a lot is the speed of recent limited formats.
Mm-hmm.
Both in terms of like how quickly you are dead
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of
First few turns.
the first few turns. Like the fact that based on some, and we'll talk about this on some like 17 lands data, if you make a turn one play that kind of impacts the board in any meaningful way, your win rate goes up like 5%.
Yeah.
Right. So this thing that they were talking about is kind of in the like set up by the fact that in the arena era, since they had 17 lands, like 4 of the 6 fastest sets, or like 4 of the 5 fastest sets, have been like 4 of the last 5 or 6 sets released on
Mm-hmm.
arena. So like when we talk about this, like that is kind of where he was coming from
Yeah.
in this.
I
So
pulled out some of that data if
okay.
you wanna
Look at you.
speak at it.
Okay.
So there are 9 sets on 17 lands where the average turn length is under 9 turns for a game. The most recent 6 sets, so the last 6 sets that we've had, are all in those 9 sets.
Okay.
The other pinpoint there is Murders at Karlov Manor is one of only 4 sets with a win rate on the play above 53%. So where the die roll has a significant impact on who wins the match.
Mm-hmm.
All of those 4 sets were released last year.
Yes.
So all of the sets that have a on the play win rate above 53% happened in the last 12 months.
Yeah. Which just means again, like it is prizing you like being on the board / like aggressive
Right.
early on.
Yep.
And the other thing you have here is that like he brought up that because like the best thing for you to do is to play like a 1 mana 2/1
Mhm.
or a 1 mana 1/1 with evasion, or a 2 mana 2/3 with like some ability.
Right.
That means that you don't have the time to play the cool archetypes that
Yeah.
get put into limited. And so like, oh hey, this really cool like blue green build around just is unplayable.
Mhm.
Like blue green as an archetype, it always kind of falls into like blue green rampy crap, right?
Well, I think like those are 2 separate things though. So Marshall specifically called out blue green as like just being
Mhm.
abysmal because
Yeah.
it kind of always falls into the same trap that's very opposite of what the game is designed or how limited is designed to play lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think separate from that is the cool archetypes. And when I heard this, I got thinking to myself, what was the last set where we had like the hidden archetype that was good?
Dominaria United had a 5-color archetype
Oh,
that was
that
pretty
might
good.
not be the one that I'm thinking of.
Or
Was
were
that
you
the
thinking
one that like the walls? Was there something with walls?
Yeah, that was the that set had walls in it.
Yeah.
That was the black white archetype was walls. But there was also like you could like play a 5-color deck. Or like maybe Keldheim with like
Yeah,
5-color
5 color
snow.
snow.
But like I was more like, hey, there's this cool blue-red build around.
Mm-hmm.
The blue-red signpost and common wants you to do fiddly stuff with artifacts.
Yeah.
Well, you can't take that
Completely
card if you want to
unplayable.
win
Yeah.
because there's a white 2-mana 3/2 with like an ability
Yeah.
at uncommon. You've got to take that because that's going to win you more games. And so, like, oh, hey, there's a neat black blue archetype.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play it because it's too slow and requires too much setup.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like using blue green as like blue green has like been a slow kind of ponderous archetype for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you can't take like a 3-drop that like taps for mana when your opponent goes like 1, 2, 3, kill your 3-drop. You
Right.
never get to play your like big 6-drop.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. So you had this thing where like the limited games are getting condensed.
Mm-hmm.
And why I told James to listen to it is there was a little bit of our like, man, limited has really changed, right? Ours is more like the game has really changed.
Yeah.
But limited has really changed. And like, I would like a like return to sets that like we used to get.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would like to be able to play a 12 turn on average game of limited.
Yeah.
Not a 9 turn average game of limited.
Yeah, and like that's exactly what Marshall said too.
Yeah,
And
like
he even
got,
said that like you can't argue that. I'm trying to remember his words now. Like him and LSV both tend to not play aggressive decks.
Mhm.
And he specifically said, I realize there's going to be a lot of people that say I'm complaining because the archetype that I prefer isn't particularly playable, but like, and then that's when he went into all of this other data that,
yeah,
everything is just getting absurdly fast, and it doesn't
like
even matter that, it's not his preferred way to play. It's like fundamentally a problem.
he was saying, what was it that I know people are going to say that we like to play like ramp or control decks. He's like, I would just like mid range
Yeah.
to be a playable archetype.
Yeah.
And, that has been pushed out. And he always talks about like recently, like that there feels like there must be like a spreadsheet
Mm-hmm.
where
this is your 6-drop green creature, and this is your
exactly
2-drop 3/1, and
yeah, the 6-drop green creature that gains you some amount of life. That's
Yeah.
kind of like his go-to. Like, there's a lot of things that feel like samey.
Yeah.
And like LSV did say that like a lot of the sets are starting to lose their identity.
Yeah.
And being different. Because I mean, if all of the sets are like, I can't take this 4-drop because I might be dead before I cast it.
Yeah.
Or so far in the hole it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to take this 2-drop. Then every set feels the same. Where like every set drafts where you're like, I got to go 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Like 1, 2, 3 removal spell, win the game. And we've all played enough limited to know that, if you go 1, 2, 3 and your opponent goes miss their 3rd land drop, the game ends.
Yep.
And like those things still happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it like exacerbates those situations and makes them even worse.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to kind of like, I really wish I could go back to playing some version of Magic that like we recognize.
Yeah.
As like what we like enjoyed playing.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about like sets feeling different, like there is definitely like during spoiler season, you got a unique feeling for the cards from Lost Caverns.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a unique feeling for the cards from Murders at Karlov Manor. But in gameplay, if you blocked the names out, I could not tell you which cards were in which set.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, again, like the way you play the game.
Yeah.
So like hey, this card has disguise. It does a really neat thing. It's like you cannot in Modern Magic, regardless of what the set is, play a 3-mana 2/2.
Yep.
You will lose the game if you use your 3 mana to play a 2/2.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was another thing that Marshall had talked about, and it was something that we had talked about when we were doing like our introduction to the set show, where we did a lot of comparisons to Cons, because Disguise is basically Morph, and Cons was a great limited set, and we talked about all the reasons why Morph made, Cons a good limited set and what we were expecting to see, and like Disguise is not playable. You cannot take a creature with Disguise unless you're going to play it for its front side, because you'll be dead before you flip it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Where like Cons was like tons of like common and uncommon tap lands.
Mm-hmm.
Like you couldn't play 1-drops.
Right.
And then 3 and 4 color decks, sometimes 5 color decks, right? And now this is like a modern lean 2 color set.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of those things that allowed like Morph to be good just aren't there. But like if every time you like go to draft a set, you should draft red black, most power and toughness and removal spells you can.
Yep.
Right? The cheapest cards with the highest first number and the cheapest removal spells. That is your draft deck every time. What is the red black archetype? Don't know, don't care.
Aggression.
I know that this is a good 1-drop, this is a good 2-drop, this is a good 3-drop. Right? Or you're like, I gotta draft red white.
Mm-hmm.
Or like maybe you can draft like blue white.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's aggressive evasive flyers. Right? And then it's like, what about the other archetypes?
Don't matter.
Yeah, like the green creatures aren't aggressive enough at like low enough cost to matter.
Yep.
Like blue green doesn't matter. Blue reds, like you can't like have a deck full of spells and be fidgety all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Every so often one of those archetypes will like get there.
Yeah. Synergy doesn't work when you're dead though, and synergy takes time to set up.
And so you have like this thing where just like all of the unique archetypes and unique cards give way to 2 mana 3/1.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if every limited set feels like that, why do you keep going back? You would go back to limited because you would get like a fast aggressive set and then like a slow set and then like one set kind of in the middle, and like you could like find the the caves archetype, which like it didn't work, or gates. Like gates was like an archetype that like you had time to breathe and like do that.
Yep.
And like now you don't have that replayability because you've got to go 1, 2, 3 every game, or you're going to die. Like you can do fun things, but fun things aren't that much fun when you just like 1-3 every arena draft or whatever.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next bit here, I got a thought that just popped into my head I want your take on. So when we were doing our mechanics episode, we kind of complained about like power crept Morph, and like why didn't they just use Morph? It could have just been Morph, whatever. This is just strictly better Morph. What does that do for either Morph or Disguise coming back, that the mechanic was kind of such a miss? Like it's not doing anything unlimited, it's not doing anything in constructed.
I mean, I have a thought for like kind of that kind of goes with the next thing as well, but this kind of fills in with both. As you make 1 and 2 mana cards better, it really puts a pressure on your 3 mana 2/2
to do something,
to be really good.
Yeah, and having Ward 2 isn't really good,
especially when you printed like 3 cards that said can't be countered on them as removal spells.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we could have used Morph. but we didn't because we wanted to make them harder to interact with and harder to kill. But we're going to print multiple removal spells that say can't be countered on it.
Yeah.
To get around the ward. Then why did you put the ward on the card?
Yeah.
Right? You could have just had like eliminate as the card.
Right.
But no, you went with the long goodbye, so it had ward. So like just make it morph and put eliminate in the set.
Yeah.
Not make it war or make it disguise and then put what plays as eliminate in the set. But like I think that like you run into this problem. Like I don't think it can come back really.
Yeah.
Unless you have it could come back in like a con situation. Imagine if they like were like 3-color set with like tap lands and like structurally they slow the set down so that your morphs matter.
Yeah.
But like that would require them printing cards that they currently feel like are unprintable.
Do you think that that's something they can do since we've moved away from blocks though? Like I think one of the reasons why cons was successful is because they didn't have to jam everything into one set. They let that kind of stuff have a little bit of room to breathe. And like now that we're not spending as much time developing the same themes and the same synergies and the same archetypes, they've got to cram everything into one set.
That could make it harder where you have to like, you know, if you want like 6 cards that are a 9 or a 10 for a given standard archetype, they all have to go into this.
Right.
As opposed to being like, you know, again, using the cons, well, we have Morph, but then later on we'll have Megamorph.
Right.
And they both kind of like care about the same things.
Well,
so we can spread them out, as opposed to like having to put like Den Protector and Death Mist Raptor and Mastery of the Unseen and all of these cards in cons. You got to spread them out, so you had more space for 4-mana 4/3 flavor text.
Yeah, like that's like that point was kind of what I was getting at. When you've got 5 mechanics in a set and you've got 10 limited archetypes you're trying to support, plus maybe a sub theme for a special archetype, and you're trying to tell a story, like some of those things are exclusive. Like they can't overlap. Like if you have a mechanic like Morph, you can't just put anything on that card. Number one, especially with a mechanic like Morph, number one, because there's a good chance that card's never going to see the backside, and also because like there's only so much room on a card. Like you're not going to have a card that's like a Morph and
double-sided.
Yeah.
Like you have the like you are like limited, and like you also have, you said like, you know, all the limited archetypes. You're also designing for constructed.
Yeah.
Right? So like,
well,
how like you can't like have the right number of cards that do things for limited and then seed the
power,
like the red white disguise archetype in standard or whatever.
Yeah.
Unless you have to put all of those cards in the set.
Yeah.
Right. So like I think that like if you were simply designing for limited, you could like maybe make no blocks work, because you could be like, well, I don't care if this is playable in constructed. I care about the limited outcomes. But you have to have the cards that are playable and constructed that are at higher rarities, or and rare isn't that rare.
Right.
So it just makes it harder to like balance the whole thing out when you can't go like, we probably shouldn't put like these 5 busted cards in the set. We should spread them out across multiple sets where they can all share a mechanic.
Yeah.
Because like, what was the in cons, like, what was it, Disguise and Cloak are
Yeah.
Here, that was Morph and Manifest.
Yep. And they were two sets.
And they were in two different sets.
Yeah.
But here we stuck them together.
Yeah.
And it's like, it would have been nice to be able to like spread them out.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I don't know, like, can Cowboys cloak? Could you have like put cloak in the Cowboy set?
Maybe.
And spread it out a little bit that way, and then giving yourself a little bit more room for like, you know, some like lower powered cards, some stinkers that made it so you didn't like get run over on turn 5.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't know if you can like bring Morph, Disguise, whatever the next version of it is, back without like does it have to be a 3-mana 3/3?
I mean, it has to be better than a 3-mana 2/2 with Ward. It has to be. Like you've raised the bar. You can't print anything worse than that from now on.
Yeah, and like there's only like so you either can lower the power of the things around those cards at the 1 and 2 mana mark, which might not be a bad thing. I think part of the reason Limited has gotten so fast recently is we have a lot more playable 1 and 2 drops than we used to.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's something that like again on LR they bring up, like we used to just ignore the 1 drops and now they're like some of the most important cards in the set.
Yep. Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah. And then is that Westwing Falcon or whatever? Yeah. 1 mana, 1/2 flyer with first strike?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have like that issue where your 1s and 2s are way more powerful, so they get played more.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're gonna have a 3-mana 2/2 Garbo, right? Like Ward or whatever, then you gotta make like bad 1 and 2 mana cards to make 3-mana 2/2s like okay.
How do you do that though? How do you print a set where like the power is reduced in general to make, you know, slower things better while at the same time like increasing the length of standard and still having all of those power crept cards? Like there's no way to go backwards.
Yeah, because like I mean you could
forfeit a year's worth of sales, like
but no, like you could put the power in like 4 and 5 drops, or like, you know what I mean, where instead of like having these like 1 and 2 mana cards with like walls of text, you you put the walls of text at 4, 5, and 6. And then that makes it so you can play a 2-mana 2/2 or a 3-mana 2/2, and then maybe flip it up on turn 4 or on turn 5 and like have some sort of profitable interaction with their 4-mana like impressive spell that had more power.
Kind of like my point though is that if you're going to print something into standard that is at a reduced power level and you want to still sell cards, so you have to still print cards that people want, what do you print at 4 mana that's better than Shieldred? What do you print at 5 mana that's better than Shieldred for the next 2 years?
That is a huge problem. Like, well, again, I would bring up we missed on Shieldred.
Yeah.
But like, it dies. Well, what if it doesn't? But like,
spoiler alert, it usually doesn't.
I don't know what you can print, but like the answer can't just be to like print better Tenacious Underdog every single set, you know, or print better like Rafine's Informant or better Mosswood Dread Knight or whatever, right? Right, you can't just be like, well, we have to print better 1s and 2s because we can't print a better 4. We can't print a better 5 than Bonehorde Dracosaur.
Yeah.
So we have to make like 3s ridiculous. I'm not saying you have to do it for like every single set. But like, hey, we're gonna do the morph set, make the 1s and 2s worse, make a 4-drop that is like in red or white that is like Shieldred adjacent,
Mhm.
right? Not like the same power level, but like then maybe that would get people to play like a land other than a swamp in their deck in standard.
Yeah.
Right? Because like standard is, you know, a lot of it is kind of going back to the old best of one, where it's like you're either playing all mountains
Mhm.
and you're trying to get them dead immediately, or you play swamp plus a friend,
Yeah.
and then you're like settling into like resolve a Shieldred, which they more than likely can't kill,
Hmm.
and then offset all their attacks by like drawing 2 cards.
Yeah.
But like you got to have that split. But I'm saying like, or like you make it maybe Morph only works in like a 3-color set now, where like there's a stack of like tapped um tapped dual lands
Mhm.
where like or you like make a bunch of the 2 drops gold so they're harder to cast.
Yeah.
Or like you like, hey, this is a gold set, but all the 2 drops are double color.
Mhm.
So right, like so now like you really have to work to cast the 2 drop,
Yeah.
and that's gonna slow the games down. But like you still could have a powerful 2 drop in your like 2-colored standard deck with better mana than your like limited deck that's like 3 dual lands
Yeah.
and then like 5/5/5 or whatever. So like maybe something that where you have to like specifically say, I'm gonna slow this down as much as possible.
Mhm.
But I think that the problem is like people playing like current limited have been trained that you like always get to cast your 2 drop because it's like one in a hybrid red white. And so it
Well,
doesn't matter if I have plains or mountain, I get to cast my 2 drop. They don't have that struggle.
so I think this is the next thing that we're going to talk about here,
Mm-hmm.
and was like literally my first comment to you while I was listening to this is how much, like, I don't think this is something that Marshall touched on, but how much of this is just designing for limited or for arena? Is this just like the arena effect, designed
I
to play games as fast as possible, grind the ladder? Like, you got to get through a game while you're on the John, waiting for your next job or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that there is definitely um an aspect of that where think about all the things that they have done to streamline cards
Hmm.
to work better on arena,
Right.
right? Unmissable triggers, or like you don't have to make a decision, like the counter just goes on a Johnny's Pride Mate.
Right.
It's no longer like you may add, it's like no, you add.
Yeah.
So
You
it does
just
it
do it.
automatically. Right? So I would not be surprised if there was like, hey, we don't want limited games to take 15 to 20 minutes. We want them to take
7.
7 or, 8 to 10,
Yeah.
right? Like we're kind of in that sweet spot. We want like 10-minute games because, whatever, like, they have the data that like the vast majority of the games are played in this time frame,
Right.
right? So we want to like bring the games down to that level. I think that's probably most of it.
Yeah.
Right? Is you have to just think about it as they are designing the sets to be this way.
Hmm.
And the most logical thing is like most of our players play on arena. Right? Think about all the cards that we've been like, oh, that card is like an arena card.
Hmm.
Like that card's like impossible to track in paper.
Absolutely.
Or like you why do we have 4 different types of counters, right, on
Yep.
these different cards? It's like, no, it's because you don't have to track it because we're playing on arena now.
Yeah, it seems like every time we do a set review episode, there's always a card or two that's like, oh, this is obviously designed for arena because it's templated this way, because it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
track, because whatever. But
Yeah, it's like they don't care if you track this in paper because no one's playing these cards in paper.
right.
And so I think that it's absolutely, as he was saying it, I was like, it's like power creep in arena,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't like keep printing amazing 1-drops and then not have people play them.
Right.
Like you can't have millions of games played that like oh, 80% of games like are done in 10 minutes, and when a game goes 20 minutes, uh there's a 50% concession rate.
Or everybody that played a 20-minute game clicked the frowny face when they asked you if you had fun.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like, did you have
Yeah.
fun? It took too long.
Yeah.
I had to poop twice.
That's right.
Right?
My
Like,
wife was calling me. I had to go.
yeah. Yeah. My break is only 15 minutes. I can't play a 20-minute game.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is probably a big part of it. Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to change.
I don't know either. I did have one more thought, kind of
Mm-hmm.
related to, I think it was the pre-show that I touched on something kind of adjacent to this about perspective. Um, and like, I'm not arguing any of this stuff. I mean, we have seen it, we have commented on it. It's a thing, but I wonder how much the data plays into this. Like Marshall, when he was talking about the data that he gathered, he kept mentioning from the 17 lands era.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you're not going to get 17 lands data from before 17 lands was around. So it makes sense that, when you're using that data, that's the data you're going to use. But you don't have a perfect data set either, because
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't have tracked, it would have been impossible to track these things before this.
Mm-hmm.
And also, does this data existing change how players are playing? Like, if people didn't have 17 lands data that said, aggression is the best way to go, would aggression be the best way to go because players would be trying to dirtle?
Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy that like
Yeah,
the best one drop is uh novice inspector?
right,
So like I've got to take novice inspector and be in white and like beat down or whatever.
right.
Maybe not. It could just be a self-fulfilling prophecy. There is like just also the if you see it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
then like if you have the numbers in front of you, then you notice it,
Right.
right? Like were there other stretches that were like either this fast or like this slow
Yeah, we just don't
or
have that
like on the
data.
other end? Yeah, we just like don't have it. But I think that, the fact that it's been multiple sets in a row,
Mm-hmm. The
like
the like what kind of led me to thinking about this is that, I mean, for years and years, this is not a new thing that I'm about to say, but we've always said in the beginning of a format, if you have a tournament the first weekend of a brand new format, the thing to do is be aggressive, because you're
mhm.
going to punish all of the people that are trying new things, are still perfecting their synergies, are dirtling around doing whatever, trying the new thing. You're just going to beat up on them and you're going to get easy wins.
Mhm.
Because I think people have access to this data now, like that I think that can factor into this self-fulfilling prophecy. Even if the cards aren't, I'm not saying they're not, because like I said, I agree
Yeah.
with everything that has been stated already. But if you have data saying that this is the best thing to do is play a one drop, like that's what you're going to do, and it's going to keep that going. But that number is going to be inflated early in a format to begin with, because that's what people are doing to capitalize on the format being new and not figured out. I don't know, it was
I
just
think
an
that
interesting
yeah,
perspective, I thought.
yeah, no, like if in week 1 red white aggro is the best,
Mm-hmm.
then in week 2 people are going to draft red white aggro.
Right.
But what normally happens in draft though is like, the saying is like draft is self-correcting.
Yeah.
If 3 people sit down to draft red white aggro, you have 3 people that should end up with like medium to bad decks because they were picking over everything from everyone else.
Well,
They were fighting over the red white.
like that only holds true if you're playing in pod, though.
Well, no, like I guess like my assumption is, let's say that assume everyone knows that red white is the best,
Yeah.
right? And so every pod people are fighting. So then you should run into less good red white decks,
Mm,
and then you should perhaps get better decks in another color, right? Now you could run into the situation where there are enough pods that like everyone in one pod thinks that blue green is great, and you just get every amazing red white card and just smash
yeah.
everyone you play cross pod. But like there should come a point where like either red white gets overdrafted, thus allowing other archetypes to kind of like come like
Load
to
up a little.
they haven't gotten better perhaps,
Yeah.
but the red white archetype has come down to them, or they've gotten a little bit better because there's less people in them, and then red white has come down a little bit, and so then they even out.
Yeah.
Or like there should be the tools in the format to like deal with the aggression,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're like, oh, like I don't know, there's this stupid wall, or there's a one on the blue '07 that just holds the ground,
Yeah.
and or like and you can put together a deck that is like defensive enough to keep you alive to then do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're not getting the tools to deal with the aggression, and because if in the nature of arena, like there are still enough good red white decks, because we're both pretty enfranchised. I've not downloaded 17 lands.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've not gone to 17 lands but like once or twice, right? So like the average person playing arena isn't looking at 17 lands data,
That's true.
right? So maybe
Well, I mean, I wonder if they state how many users they have.
I don't know. 17 lands. Do they say how many users there are? Start tracking. Game replays. Yada yada yada. I don't know. But right, maybe like if not everyone knows, and there's one red white drafter a pod,
Yeah.
or one red white drafter in 60% of the pods, then you run into a situation where like they are still getting the good version of the red white deck, and it doesn't like correct itself,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone is working from the same base of knowledge.
Yeah.
And there's also another thing that like they touched on is like I'm willing to bet when I was doing 20 to 30 drafts of a set, I was in the top like 5 to 10% of like people drafting.
Right.
Right. How many people are kind of more like you that'll show up and do like 2 sealeds and 3 drafts,
And then that's your
like
limited
move
experience.
on, and that's your limited experience?
Yeah.
And so like you aren't getting the this feels the same
Right.
vibes, because you came in the first week and you're like, I always draft aggressive stuff. I'll draft my aggressive stuff. Yay. And then move on. And then you don't play limited for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And you come back and you like draft the decks you like to draft. And then you go away again. Where like it's more pronounced when you are doing 20, 30. Marshall and LSV do like 100 drafts a set.
So I think we are severely underestimating the number, either the number of people, probably the number of people using 17 lands. I don't see that number recorded anywhere here.
Okay.
But just for shiggles, I downloaded the draft data for Cons of Turkey on Arena.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's a spreadsheet, right?
Okay.
The CSV file. How big do you think this file is?
In terms of like
Size?
10 gigs?
No, it's not that big. it's a 45 megabytes.
Okay, of
But
just ones
how big does a spreadsheet have to be
to be that big.
45 megabytes?
Where did you do the draft
I went to analytics, public data sets,
analytics?
and then draft data.
All right.
It was Premier Draft, updated 1/1/24, and it's 45 megabytes.
All right. Yeah, and otherwise it's taking forever. Come on, computer, be better. Did it like tell you how many games were in there?
I haven't opened it.
Okay, we're waiting. Maybe there's more than we like realized. But like, how many people are then like going and like, I went away. Oh,
Yeah, I'm trying to open.
You're looking at things. Sorry, I forgot. I was like, oh no, did I break? But there's still not enough people on using 17 lands to like really like
Yeah, I'm over that. That's way more than I have mental ability to process right now.
But like maybe there are more people, but if there's got to be a critical mass, right?
Yeah.
If there are 300,000 people doing drafts in any given set, right? And there are 30,000 people using 17 lands. That's 10%.
Yeah.
Right? That probably doesn't swing the numbers very far. Even if it's 100,000 people, it's a third.
Yeah.
That means like 2/3 of your people aren't using 17 lands data and like might not
it means that 2/3 of your people aren't reporting data to 17 lands. It doesn't mean they're not using
lands.
the data. And especially when you have like Reddit and limited resources that are like distributing this information. I don't know. Sometimes it's just, at least in my brain, sometimes it's interesting to think about where the data comes from and how it's used instead of just like drawing conclusions.
Yeah. Yeah, like where are people getting it from? How might they be using it?
Yeah.
How many people? But like if
how the data can change the data.
Yeah, how can it's an uncertainty principle.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you observe it,
mm-hmm.
you change it.
Right.
So you can't observe it.
Right.
So it's like, well, I would like to both know like the win rate, the best cards, and the true win rate. But it's like, well, when you know the best cards, you mess with the win rate.
Exactly.
And when you know the win rate, that changes what the best cards are.
Right.
Right. So yeah, no, I can see that. But I think at the end of all of this, whatever the causes are, it was to me interesting that there was someone whose livelihood depends on playing limited, talking about Magic, and then doing coverage, saying that like for a lot, like the most recent set, when they put the Vintage Cube up on Magic Online, I didn't go back to the standard set and draft. I just played Vintage Cube.
Yep.
And if you listen to Limited Resources, there are fewer and fewer episodes about like the state of the format.
Right.
Right. There's like, oh, we're gonna do like an old set review with the Ben Stark. Or we're going to like have Circuits on to talk about the data.
Yeah.
Right? Like things solidify much faster just because of the number of games. And that could also be another thing, right? Is like back in the day, you would do less drafts and the data was disseminated less quickly. So you couldn't get to like the big data set of like what the best cards were.
It was also like to go alongside with doing less drafts, it was like way more expensive.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're spending $30 on a set release, like you got a whole bunch of drafts on Arena. If you spend $30 on a set release and paper, that's 2 drafts.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
And like those 2 or 3 drafts took 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. Each.
Where so you're 8 hours in.
Yeah.
Where on Arena you've done, I don't know, 6, 7 drafts,
Probably
maybe 8 in an hour in 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You've done like 4 times as many drafts.
Yeah.
For the same amount of money in the same amount of time.
Right.
And like, we're just maybe like Magic is not built to handle the modern pace of things, like modern data. Like, how long do we get like, I don't know, robo read that just like plays a set and then is like, this is the absolute best deck because AI read played 10 million matches in like an afternoon.
Yeah.
And this is the best possible deck.
Well, that's kind of a unique point that Magic has already had this problem. I mean, it's kind of the same problem that Magic had from the get-go, because like the reason that the Power 9 exists were because Mr. Garfield, Dr. Garfield there, didn't think that anybody would ever know what all of the cards were. He thought cards would be so rare that nobody would know what all of the cards were.
That no one would ever have 20 mocks in.
Right.
Right? Because, there's like, people are going to buy like 3 packs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to play with those 3 packs.
Yeah, they're going to shuffle them into their starter deck, and then that's their card pool forever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess lucky for him, they didn't.
Right.
But, yeah, so, like, you could get away with designing differently when, like, someone may never see a Black Lotus.
Right.
Like, you would hear whispered, hushed, like, oh, man, this guy, like, played this thing, and, like, it made 3 mana, and he played, like, a Singular Vampire on turn 1.
Yeah.
Whoa! Right? He went Lotus Dark Ritual Singular Vampire. I couldn't win.
Yeah.
Right? And, so, like, and then as people got more information, like, it kind of changed how cards had to be designed.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, are we reaching, like, the next kind of inflection point of information?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, where, especially with, like, less churn, we've talked about this before,
Mm-hmm.
like, it used to be that, like, the deck that won the SEG, there'd be a deck to beat it the next week.
Yep.
And now there's kind of like less churn because there's less high level, high leverage events. So like, why do I need to figure out the deck that beats Shieldred when I can just like cash in 4 Mythic Wildcards and have my Shieldred?
Mm-hmm. As
opposed to you'd be cashing in like over $300 to get 4 Shieldreds in paper.
Right.
So it might be the financially sound choice to be like, we're going to beat Shieldred, we can't play him.
Right.
Right, you don't have that same
card availability too. Like, especially when you're dealing with mythics, and like heaven forbid there's a set that doesn't sell well and it has like the best card to play, there just might not be copies of the card for sale that you can get, like let alone the price. But on Arena, it's just a couple wild cards away. There is no card availability issues.
Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have that, like, you don't have the same pressures, card availability, tournaments, whatever, to like force you to find a way to beat something. You can just be like, well, I'm going to play like the best thing that like suits my play style or the best thing, period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
you want to jump into the second topic real quick? Or, I mean, we're creeping up on an hour, so.
That's right. We can get through this relatively quickly. It can be a shorter rant.
All right.
So, as we all know, the Lord of the Rings set made many, many dollars.
Yeah, more than 1 or 2.
Yeah, more than 1 or 2. And based on this, that was decided that, hey,
We
we
should do more of that.
more of these. So they are going to go from one Lord of the Rings size set
Universes
year.
Beyond set.
Universes Beyond Lord of the Rings, like full 300 card release.
Yep.
To 2. And I think they're going to be draftable products.
Yes.
Was that the plan?
Well, the way it was stated was that there's going to be 2 per year within the format of the 6 set per year plan. So they've done, like, the last couple of years, we've had like 4 regular releases and then some sort of Modern Horizon Commander
we had Time Spiral
Masters.
remastered last year.
Yeah.
Did we have like some remaster sets that were released?
Yeah, Dominaria remastered. So like a full on set release.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of those per year are now going to be Universes Beyond. So there was a whole bunch more in this press release that I'm sure will get disseminated eventually and people will be talking about for a couple weeks. But like, what this in particular, what does this look like? Are we gonna get, is one of these going to replace like the Modern Horizons set, or is like one of these gonna replace a standard legal set? Are we gonna have standard legal Fast and the Furious,
So
Dodge
like
Charger, Commander?
I just want the card that says it's about family for the Fast and Furious set. Dom Toretto, Family Man, as a planeswalker.
I want it to be called 10-second car.
There we go. Okay, so we have so last year we had the Dominaria Remastered, Lord of the Rings, and was there like a double masters set in the fall, like between Lord of the Rings and the fall set? I don't remember. They all kind of like run together.
Commander Legends. Didn't we have Commander Legends 2 last year?
Yes, I think we did. So maybe you have like, maybe the summer is like every couple years Modern Horizons 8 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, all free spells or whatever. And then so like every other year, maybe there's a modern, or maybe every 3 years there's a Modern Horizon set in the summer, and then there's like and then the other years it is a Universes Beyond product, and then in those like there's like a spring release date for a thing, and there's kind of like a fall end of summer release date for another thing. Maybe they go like, they use those when there's a Modern Horizons release, and then they use like summer and one of them for the other years. But I mean, maybe they kind of push Modern Horizons aside if like Modern Horizons 3 doesn't do as well as Lord of the Rings did. Because like it's not about making Modern better.
True. It's about moving product.
It's about moving product. So like if they're like, man, we spent all this R&D time on Modern Horizons 3 and it didn't sell as well as Modern Horizons 2 because, I don't know, we've alienated all of our modern players. So I guess we won't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And instead that'll just be our like, we'll have the Hulk set, we'll have the Spider-Man set.
Yeah.
Every summer with our multiple Marvel products.
So like we really, because we moved to these bonus sheets in basically every set going forward now, I don't think there's really a need for a master set anymore, right?
No. I think they're all Horizon sets going forward.
And that also kind of eliminates the need for remastered sets?
To some degree, yes.
Because a remastered set is basically a master set like in a block.
Yeah.
So,
or on a plane.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know that we need either of those, which opens up like a slot in the year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're gonna get away from Horizon sets though, because like they've always done really well. And
So, like, when
we're
was Modern Horizons 2 released?
2 years ago?
Was it 3 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago.
I am looking, and again, Google doesn't want to Google. Solid. Yep. This is so weird that it does this, but whatever. So what was the podcast? It was just Brian complaining about his Google not Googling. Maybe it was 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago. And like I think we're approaching, we're not quite there yet, but we might be approaching the point of like a Pioneer Horizon set being viable as a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't 100% know that that's going away. It's a way for them to print cards into Modern. It's a way for them to print cards into Commander. It's a way for them to print cards into Legacy. Like all of those other formats that aren't standard. Things that are higher power level than standard would normally be. Which I guess there's no reason that Universes Beyond whatever couldn't be that as well. But I find it hard to believe that they're not going to do some sort of that product there. And I think that like they're trying to attract new players with these Universes Beyond crossovers. Like they're not just for nostalgia nerds that already play Magic and like really like Fallout, really like Assassin's Creed, really like Lord of the Rings. They're meant to attract new people to the game. And they're trying to like revitalize, or there's a push at least to revitalize in-store play in standard. So I think it kind of makes sense to, instead of porting these people directly into Commander, because you could do that with just Commander decks. I think it kind of makes sense to port them back into like a competitive format like Standard. So it would not surprise me if the summer Standard release turns out to be the Avengers or X-Men or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like you could do like that would suck so bad though to just like, your standard set, like your standard play be like, Spider-Man versus Tony Stark.
I mean, I don't know
whatever.
that it's any worse than anything else that has happened in the last few years.
Fair, yeah, we've definitely kind of moved away from like
A
seeming to
shark
care
has been
about those
jumped.
things.
Yeah, there's
Very
no
true,
putting
very
it
true.
back. At least I don't think there's any putting it back.
No, probably not, which is unfortunate.
Kind of like the same way I don't see a way out of power creep. I don't see a way out of.
Yeah. I also like, maybe this is just me, but like, it feels like they're like 5 years too late to the Marvel train.
Oh yeah.
It just feels like we missed it.
So that was something, I don't think it was in the article, but I think it was in the press briefing. They mentioned, because they do like cost breakdowns, right? Because it's meant to give information to investors. One of the things that they specifically called out was that Universes Beyond products have a 2% lower profit margin than a normal set due to royalties paid to the IP owner. So how much money did they take in for Lord of the Rings? Do you have it pulled up there, or is your internet still not working?
My internet's still a little wonky.
Okay, let me see if I can find it real quick. Told investors. There it is. So riveting content here where I'm skimming through an article. Hasbro revenues.
Well, Modern Horizons came out 3 years ago.
Oh, it was 3 years ago?
June 2021. So like Modern Horizons 4 could come out in 3 years, and they would have like multiple spots to put, My Little Pony,
Yeah.
and whatever in.
Yeah,
I
and I
had to
guess
stoop to Microsoft Edge.
just because that's the plan now doesn't mean it won't change or whatever. But
Yeah. But yeah, it matters how much they make on that, on like the next Universes Beyond set. Like, they're kind of basing this, I think we said in the pre-show, on the like absolute best IP
yeah,
that they could have done,
yeah,
right? Like, what if the Marvel setting that they pick doesn't resonate with people?
well, multiple Marvel settings,
Yeah, but like,
getting
what if
multiple
one of them
sets.
does it? What
Yeah,
what if they, like, I don't know, do Thor: The Dark World, and everyone's like, ugh, why did we do this? This is
yeah.
so bad. No one liked this. So yeah, I'm not sure, but it is sad that they spent years and years and years and years and years building up like the Magic World and the Magic IP and the Magic story
Mhm.
to then go, you know what? No, screw it. We're gonna cut a big chunk of that out. We're gonna hitch our wagon to the popularity of other things.
Yeah,
But like, you have to. People are like somewhat fickle, right? Like, I don't know how well Assassin's Creed is going to sell. Like,
right.
again, back in my day, those games were. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since they made me a pirate. Um, and like maybe do like boat quests
Yeah.
and stuff, right? And like, like, is this like, and people hate Ubisoft,
Mhm.
so like, are like they gonna be super pumped to buy like Assassin's Creed? Um, like there's, you know, people are kind of like Marvel fatigued,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna get the true Marvel believers, but there's also a lot of people who are gonna be like, you know what? No, I'm on to whatever. It'd be like if they got like Game of Thrones now,
Yeah.
right?
Too
Like,
little, too late.
you miss your Game of Thrones like chance. Like,
Yeah.
that was 7 years ago.
Windows
You would
gone.
have sold a ton.
So I don't see an exact number anywhere. Um, but 6 months ago, it was expected to hit 200 million.
Okay.
What's 2% of 200 million?
2% of 200 million.
Yeah.
That is a 50th of it. So it's 4 million.
So that's what was paid to the Tolkien estate for making Lord of the Rings.
Man, why couldn't like one of my relatives make like an all-time like
Yeah.
thing where like, so what's your job? I just manage my dead great grandfather's books. Oh, neat. Like, yeah, pretty neat.
I thought that was interesting though. So a little bit later note to end the show on.
Okay.
I think we kind of did this once already, but now that we know more is coming, what else is good for Universes Beyond? Like what IPs I don't think there's anything that's going to be at the same level as Lord of the Rings.
No.
But what other IPs do you think would sell or be like a reasonable crossover?
Could they get like The Last of Us? They already have a relationship with Sony
Maybe.
through like Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
and like The Last of Us. Like, if you like had a Last of Us set release when season 2 of The Last of Us came out on HBO,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
right? That could like, and that's kind of in that time range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I joking that like Game of Thrones, like if George R. Martin ever finishes the last book,
Yeah.
right? Again, like you
Do
have
this to
like your
coincide.
release kind of timed around when the last book comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, then you'd get people that are mad that like the characters on the cards look like the book characters and don't look like
Yeah, whatever.
the characters from the
From the
show.
show.
Mm, like I feel like they have to be like fantasy, like nerdy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it a little bit harder because
You think they have to do fantasy? You think it has to be fantasy?
like I don't I don't know if like let's say the people who are huge Fast and the Furious fans.
But I didn't. I didn't.
No,
That was totally a joke. I didn't. I
no,
do
no, no.
not
But
think we're
but
gonna get the 10-second car.
I think that like people that are fans of the Fast and the Furious,
Yeah.
there's not enough crossover with people who would also be exposed to that in like a Magic context, or the
Sure.
type of person that is going to like go buy all the Fast and Furious things.
There are certainly genres though that do
Mm-hmm.
overlap better that aren't fantasy.
Yeah.
Like,
What do you think?
I mean, I don't know how they would do it, but there's a plethora of sci-fi IPs.
No, yeah, I guess like fantasy, sci-fi, kind of. I should have like I lumped those together in my head. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean they're not going to get Star Wars. Papa Disney's not going to give them that. Could you do? I think like what about anime things? Like what if they did like a Naruto set?
Yeah.
Like that. Like that has like
Mm-hmm.
they just get like we do like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and Bleach.
Well, I think they'd have to do something that like doesn't already have a card game though, right? Because like a company's not going to license their IP to
Mm,
Magic if they already have a card game.
yeah,
And I
is there
think
not
like a lot of those anime
have card
ones like
games?
have card
Yeah,
games. Like My Hero does, right?
I think. So I am not.
And yeah,
I'm not
they
sure.
probably won't do Star Wars, and like I don't think Star Trek is current enough, or
Yeah.
like
As
as
parent.
like at least Star Wars is like sci-fi fantasy. Like Star Trek
Mhm.
is not really. It's just sci-fi. There is no fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, as Paramount Plus has found out, Star Trek is not enough to like keep a whole thing afloat.
Yeah.
Um, I like could they like rely on the fact that most of the people that play the game are like in their like most of the moneyed people are in
Yeah.
their like 40s, and like are there some like nostalgia things that you could like? I mean, they've already kind of tapped into some of them, but like He-Man
Yeah.
or
I don't know that
stuff
like
like that.
He-Man is an extensive enough property though.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how many episodes there were of He-Man.
Yeah.
Uh, but
But I mean, they could do something like Dune, maybe. Like that might be a
yeah,
universes beyond. There's enough
yeah,
like material there and has enough fans.
hmm yeah. But like, it has to be something where there's like at least some like crossover that like people would be aware of.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, for Lord of the Rings, like I definitely people that I'd never heard talk Magic were like, "Oh, I've heard of this Lord of the Rings set."
Mhm.
It's like, "Oh, you have go on."
Tell me about it. Tell me about the One Ring
Yes,
Post Malone bought for $2 million or
Posty.
whatever it was.
Yes. All right. So with all this, I think we got a show.
We got a show.
So if you want to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Discord, Twitter,
X.
email, X, like, let us know what you guys want us to talk about. Hopefully, Arena will work on my iPad again, so I
Hopefully
can
the
play
internet
the game.
works.
Hopefully, the internet works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I am uh on Microsoft Edge now. It feels like it's a Chrome problem.
Possibly. If you're looking to support the show, a couple ways you can do it. The first is with our TCG player affiliate link, casualtryhard.com/TCG. Surf on over there, do any of your shopping. You'll help support us at the same time. More directly, you can support us at patreon.com/casualtryhardmtg. You can chip a couple bucks in, you get access to our pre-show, you get access to our show notes, and you help us out a lot. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/casualtryhardmtg.
All right. So with that, we'll catch you on the internet.
We'll catch you on the end.